What inspires a firefighter to charge into a burning building? What drives a soldier to jump out of his protected position to charge an enemy machine gun nest? The answer, of course, is courage. And we, all of us, are fascinated by profiles in courage. When courageous people speak of their acts of heroism, we pay attention because we all want to know how courage works. And we all hope in our heart of hearts that we, in such situations of peril, might act with the same bravery. You have all heard it said that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather acting for something that is more important than fear. Today, the Lord Jesus goes deeper than that and helps us get at the somewhat paradoxical heart of courage. He speaks of courage today because after calling his apostles, which we heard about last week, he goes on to list the many trials and tribulations and dangers that they will face following him. And those dangers, in different ways, apply to us as his followers as well. There is no risk-free, danger-free path to following Jesus. Being a Christian, being his disciple, demands courage, because being his disciple takes us into dangerous places. What does he say? He says to us, "Fear no one." And then, somewhat strangely, he gives an exception. He says, "Fear no one. Do not fear those who can kill the body only, but rather fear the one who can destroy both soul and body in Gehenna." He is speaking, of course, about himself. He's speaking about God, who is our ultimate judge, to whom we owe everything. And he's telling us that the secret heart of courage is having the right kind of fear. The secret to courage is prioritizing our fear. And what we should fear most is losing the friendship and communion we enjoy with God. When we fear that more than anything else, we can stand up to all the terrors, all the dangers of the world, because those dangers cannot separate us from God. Only we can do that to ourselves by denying him, by rejecting him, by loving something more than him. Brothers and sisters, all of this talk of fear may strike us as gloomy, as dark. But the truth is, fear is the shadow of the light of love. What we love, we fear the loss of. And what we love the most will be the greatest fear of our loss. Again, this may sound strange, but when we listen to the testimonies of brave people, people who run into burning buildings, people who have committed amazing acts of military heroism, we hear something similar. When they interview Medal of Honor recipients and ask those brave soldiers and airmen and sailors, "How did you do it?" their answer is often the same. "I feared disappointing my comrades. I feared letting them down more than being wounded, more than being killed." Because that soldier loved his comrades more than his own life, he was willing to jump into harm's way and do something very brave. Jesus is inviting us to do the same for him. Christian bravery, Christian heroism, fearlessness takes different forms throughout the centuries. And in the saints, we are given amazing profiles in courage, Christian courage. We received one such profile on Thursday when the church celebrated the memorial of St. Thomas More, known, no doubt, to many of you. Thomas was a high-ranking official in the kingdom of Henry VIII. He was a loyal and devoted servant to the king, an excellent and hard-working lawyer. But he could not follow Henry into his break from the Roman Catholic Church. He could not follow Henry into his divorce and remarriage. Why? Because Thomas More feared God more than he feared a king who could deprive him of his liberty, his reputation, and even his life. And because of that holy fear, Thomas More was able to persevere to the end in peace, in love. Thomas did not hate King Henry. He was not hostile to King Henry and those who followed him. But he could not follow him because he had a greater king whom he loved. He had a greater king whom he feared. And that fear and that love gave him strength to shine in an age when so many people compromised, so many people fell away from the faith. Today, we do not run the same risks as English Catholics in the 16th century. We do not have a government that is trying to usurp the church. But there are other forces, there are other powers at work in our world pressuring us to turn away from Jesus and compromise. There are forces that pressure us to deny the truth that marriage is between a man and a woman, to deny the truth that male and female, God created them. Like St. Thomas More, we do not give in to these pressures because we fear God more than being canceled. We fear God more than being misunderstood. And in this courage, we do not respond with hostility to hostility, but we stay firm and true to the one who loves us, the one who is greater than the kingdoms of the world, to Jesus. Think for a moment of the freedom that comes from this fearlessness into which Jesus invites us. Think of the glory. Think of the sovereignty. Think of the beauty of a life free from fear. There is only one thing worth fearing, and that is the loss of our friendship with God. And when that is our greatest love, when that is our greatest fear, we are set free. And one day, God willing, we will be numbered among the saints that stood firm, that stood true, that feared no one, and loved God to the very end.